Welcome to your speedy review on social psychology. Guys, use this unit. Make sure you study it. There's a really good chance that this is going to be a unit that you're going to get some essay terms from. So going into some of the terms, you should know norms, normal ways of behavior, societal norms, expectations or guidelines for how we should behave, hindsight bias. Everything is 20/20 after you figure out what the answer is. So you have the outcome and you say you would have known that outcome all along. The next one we'll look at is the self-serving bias. The self-serving bias is a way that we excuse faults in our daily behavior. We all screw up, and this is something that is necessary to bolster self-esteem. So self-serving bias, I burn cookies and I go, well, it's really not my fault because. Now, if I always use a self-serving bias, always an excuse that prevents me from having to take full accountability for my actions, then you will have somebody who is going to have a pretty large problem with being successful in life. But to a certain degree, we have to excuse certain failings and certain shortcomings. The self-serving bias does help prevent us from being wholly responsible for every action, and sometimes there are mitigating circumstances. Self-fulfilling prophecy, you make a prediction, you engage in a behavior that ensures the prediction will come true, and then you sit there and go, I knew it all along. Again, hindsight bias. Example of this, I'm never going to pass this test. I don't study. I can't pass the test because I don't know any of the information. I go, aha, see, my prophecy was correct. I didn't pass the test. Fundamental attribution error. Fundamental attribution error, you attribute behavior either to the situation or a person's personality or their disposition. The error in this is that usually people will assume it is the person and not the situation. So you're driving down the road, person in front of you is driving erratically, you sit there and go, oh, they're an idiot. That's a fundamental attribution error. If you went with a situational attribution, you might sit there and go, oh, this person is either intoxicated or maybe they're sick. It would change the way that you react to how they drive. Stanford Prison Study, Philip Zimbardo, that's going to be social roles. In that research, the roles took over. People acted in ways that ran counter to what they believed because they felt that the role dictated that they must. Guards act like guards. Prisoners acted like prisoners. People gave up free will. Other people became more sadistic. And it's because they were going off of what they thought the social roles were, what they thought was the dictated behavior. And then additionally, they felt that they had no choice, that the role required that they do something. Cognitive dissonance, you have competing cognitions. I've used the example before, I want to eat the cupcake, but I want to lose weight. I have these two cognitions, they do not run together, they don't seem to go in a line, so I can either change my behavior or I can change my cognition. It's far easier to change the way you think than it is to change the way you behave in many cases. Conformity, this is going to be Solomon Asch's experiment. Please go back and look at his line experiment. Remember that you will conform for one of two reasons. Information, you feel that everyone else has more than you, or you want to feel normal, so that's normative social influence. Now again, for conformity to happen, it is going to be more likely if the group is unanimous, the group is much larger, so it's not just you versus one other person, but there's a majority against you. No one else is dissenting, so again, that unanimity. You value the status or the position of the group that you're following, etc., etc. And remember, with his experiment, he had roughly about 5 people in on his experiment, and then there was the person at the end. A third of the time, people seem to conform. You need to know that statistic. Obedience to authority is the Milgram experiment. Remember the shock generator. And that's roughly about 65% of the time, people will do whatever an authority figure tells them to. Now, again, it's not just essentially blind obedience, we just assume, or we will actually diffuse responsibility to the authority figure. I'm hitting the switch, but it's not my fault. You know, you're telling me to do it. You're in charge. That's diffusion of responsibility. So Milgram looked at this with the shock generator experiment. 65% of the time, people will do whatever an authority figure tells them to do. When we look at altruism or helping behavior, that's where we get bystander effect and diffusion of responsibility. The more people that are present, the more likely you are to see bystander effect, and that happens because of diffusion of responsibility. Bystander effect or bystander apathy, you fail to act because you assume someone else did. Diffusion of responsibility, the thought that someone else in a group will be acting. All right, out-group versus in-groups. Out-group are the people that are not part of your group. They are different than you in some way. Your in-group is the people that you associate with and that you kind of seem to be part of the group with. You have a bias towards your in-group, which allows for things like prejudice or stereotypes to emerge. Ethnocentrism, seeing the world within the kind of constraints of your culture. That is a way of being possibly discriminatory. Scapegoat theory, finding a group or a person to blame all your problems on, even though that person is not responsible. Just world phenomenon, we expect good things to happen to good people and we expect bad things to happen to bad people, and so the term dog eat dog world applies here. We assume that people who have bad things happen to them deserve it. With aggression, know the frustration aggression principle. Frustration, when something blocks your attempt at a goal, causes aggression. So it's not necessarily that you're just going to go out and beat people up, but if you're frustrated, you may yell at somebody. If you're frustrated, you may get into an argument with someone. So frustration, aggression. No persuasion. I don't have it on here, but no central and peripheral routes. Central route, you go directly at them with the facts. Peripheral route, you make it look pretty and you bring in a celebrity spokesperson. You dress up the topic instead of actually talking about it. Other ones you should know is foot in the door. So just get your toe in the door, start small, then go big, versus door in the face, go big, and then get them back to what you originally wanted them on the hook for. Attraction and relationship, mere exposure effect. Literally just being exposed to something, just in the presence of something for a prolonged time, makes it more attractive. So it might not just be that the person next to you is the most attractive person on the planet, but he's similar, close in proximity, and you have a lot of exposure to them, and they become more attractive in nature. Last couple ones. Social facilitation. Anything you do well, you do better when people you like are watching you. Social loafing. When the person in your group is acting like a loaf of bread. When you feel that your contributions are dispensable, they're not worth it, no one's going to notice, and you share equally in the outcome of the group, you're more likely to relax and let the rest of the group take over. Group polarization requires group discussion. When a group discusses what they think about something, they are more likely to come to an extreme consensus. Not an extreme decision, but their consensus becomes more polarized. It has to involve group thinking. Groupthink. Groupthink is going to be when no one wants to be the person who disagrees with the group, they all start to think the same way. They become yes men. So to avoid the group being disheartened or to have any kind of fighting or infighting, everyone says the exact same thing. They say yes. This was Irving Janis. Grit is going to be a technique for negotiations where each side acknowledges the other side's contribution and then offers to reduce something. So it's a graduated reduction technique. Social trap. This is going to be one of those times where the pursuit of each person's individual goal will then prevent everyone from reaching some kind of goal. So this is the, if two people are willing to sit there and share $5, they both have to be willing to agree. The other option is the person can keep $10 and the other person gets $0. If each person says, I'm going to keep the $10, then the other person gets $0, means that nobody gets $10 and nobody gets any money. But if they were to go in and do what was mutually beneficial for the entire group, everyone would get some, but not optimal. They wouldn't get, $10, they would get $5. And the social trap is, in the pursuit of your own goal, you end up with nothing. And the last term, de-individuation, it's the idea that when made to feel anonymous, to be part of a mob or a mass or a large group, you may find that people will act more like mob mentality, that there's a greater likelihood that people will act in ways they wouldn't normally do because they no longer feel that they would be identified as an individual and they get swept up in kind of the group behavior. Important people for you guys to know: Zimbardo, Ash, and Milgram.